it's Sabrina from the Gombe family, and today we're going to talk about being vegan in Kenya, which is definitely a unique experience. I hope that you guys can't hear the kids outside because they're being kind of loud, so I'll try to speak louder. Okay, so let's get started with being vegan in Kenya. So how people react, that's what I wanted to talk about first because it's kind of funny. So when we told our landlord's wife that we were vegan, she was telling us like, oh, we want to invite you over so you could see our home and blah, blah, blah. They live right next to us. And we're like, okay. She was like, yeah, so tell us what you like to eat so we could prepare what you like. And we're like, oh, like we're not picky, but we just don't eat meat. We're vegan. And she was like, oh, okay. How about chicken? We're like, no, we don't eat meat. She was like, oh, okay, how about fish? We're like, no, we don't eat meat. No milk, no eggs, none of that. And she was like, oh, okay. And she was like, well, like trying to get to like, what do we eat? And like me and my husband were both saying, sukuma wiki, githeri, there's a bunch of like Kenyan foods that don't require meat. So it's not as big of a deal as people make it. But people see meat as something that people eat when they have money here. So in the village, they don't often eat meat because it costs, you know? And one thing that they do eat a lot are these like, I don't know the English name for them, but they're little tiny fish that they eat in the village. So I guess that would be against being vegan. But most of the things that they eat in the village are vegan because eating anything that's meat, milk, eggs, all of that requires money that they don't have, you know? So people in Kenya see somebody who eats meat as somebody who has a significant amount of money. So when they look at somebody white, they instantly think money, so they think, of course you eat meat for every meal, right? So then they're shocked by the fact that we don't eat meat. So we talked to another one of our friends when we went to the orphanage, and it was kind of like a big issue because they were serving meat at the orphanage like the day that we went to go volunteer with a lot of other people. And so I was telling like somebody that was in charge, like, we don't eat any meat whatsoever, so we'll just take the vegetables, we'll just take the chapati, you know? And so then like some people that we were volunteering with were like, you don't eat meat at all? And we were like, no. And they were like, you can keep that because I can't live without meat, blah, blah, blah. And we're just like, it's not a big deal. Like, we find like plenty of recipes like that don't involve meat or anything, and they taste delicious. So it's not a big deal to us. We don't think every meal like, I wish there was meat here, you know? And so then one of them asked like, so do you serve meat to people that come to your house? Like when you have guests, do you serve meat to them? Which is a cultural thing here. Like if a really important guest comes to your house, you will like kill a chicken and then cook that chicken, or you will kill a goat if it's like a big event and feed the goat to the special guests, you know? So they're asking, if we have guests, do we feed our guests meat? And we're like, no. If we're vegan, why would we go out and make a special trip to go buy meat and prepare meat to serve meat to a guest when we don't eat meat? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't mean that we're not feeding our guests. Like, we've had plenty of guests that come here and we feed them exactly what we eat, you know? So I don't think that that's like a big deal, but a lot of people here see it as like a huge deal that we don't eat meat. So I think that that is going to cause issues when we go back to the village, because we just recently became vegan 3-4 months ago. And that was after we left the village. So I think that we're going to have some issues with that when we go back to the village, because people there probably won't understand either. So that's what people think when we tell them that we are vegan. They're kind of confused. They think that being vegan or vegetarian might mean like, oh, you don't eat red meat, which is Shaha's brother usually doesn't eat red meat, or things like that. And so they'll think, oh, fish is okay, or oh, white meat is okay, you know, but that's not the case. We don't eat any meat. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is what foods do we eat then, right? So there's tons of different things. I constantly am on YouTube looking for different vegan recipes that I can make. We have currently a blender, a toaster oven, and a refrigerator. Those are our main appliances, and then we use like a gas stove to cook. So I'm constantly looking at YouTube and trying to find different recipes that we can get all the ingredients for and that we can cook in our small minimalistic kitchen, right? And I've found tons of things. So I was recently talking to somebody about brownies, and that sounded so good, but most of the time brownies have eggs. Most of the time brownies might have milk, you know? So I was looking up a vegan recipe for brownies. So that's the thing that I want to try most recently, but I haven't done yet. But some things that we eat often are hummus. We get chickpeas, dried chickpeas, and then we soak them. We have hummus all the time made in our blender. We have garlic Alfredo with pasta. So it's super easy to make that. And we use a lot of plant-based milks. So rice milk is one of the most common. We've tried cashew milk. We've tried almond milk once. We've tried soy milk often. So we use those type of milks as replacements. I've made potato salad. I make fried rice often. I made mac and cheese one time, and Georgina and Shahad didn't really like the mac and cheese too much, but Safari loved it. We make French fries sometimes. We make one of these more traditional snack dishes here, which is like potatoes like dipped in flour and water and then fried. And the girls love those. And then we make PLTs. So one of my favorite things before we went vegan, of course, was BLTs. I wasn't much of a bacon or a meat eater, but bacon was, I love bacon so much, right? So I was like, how can we do like BLTs, but like a vegan way? So we decided to do it in a way that's, PLTs. So instead of bacon, we do potatoes. So we cut the potatoes in like little flat circles, and then we'll like fry them in like a little bit of oil and then flip them, and then they're crunchy potatoes, right? So it replaces the crunch of the bacon. And then instead of mayonnaise, which we've made mayonnaise before, vegan mayonnaise, and it was delicious, but I don't make it very often anymore. So instead, we made a vegan tzatziki sauce, and we use that instead of mayonnaise. And every time that we've made them thus far, we made them on bagels. And so we'll put the bagel, the toasted bagel, the tzatziki sauce, the lettuce, the tomato, onions maybe, avocados maybe, then the pieces of fried potato on top, and then more tzatziki sauce, and then the other part of the bagel. And it's so good. So that's another thing that we make sometimes. Tomato soup. I've been making tomato soup a lot. And then of course like some local dishes. So the two main dishes that we make a lot in our household are sukuma wiki, which is collard greens with onions, garlic, tomatoes. Sometimes we put bell peppers in there or another vegetable that we might have, and then you just fry those together until the collard greens get like soft. And that's delicious. You use like a bouillon cubes to like season it. It's so good. That's like my favorite thing lately. And then we eat that with ugali. So ugali is like corn flour that you cook with boiling water on the stove, and it like hardens. So you could like cut it into pieces however many people are eating with you, right? And most people here, they'll use their hands, so they'll get a piece of the ugali and then they'll dip it in the sukuma wiki and get some of the sukuma wiki on it and then eat it like that. So sukuma wiki is one, and then githeri is another one. So that one just involves beans, corn, and then after the beans and corn are cooked, then you'll add like the same vegetables that you add to the sukuma wiki except for collard greens. So you'll add tomatoes, you'll add bell peppers, you'll add onions, garlic, all of those type of things, and then season it a little bit with bouillon cubes, I think, as well. So my husband makes both of those very well. So yeah, those are just some of the vegan dishes that we often eat that people might not think of as vegan right away, but pretty much anything nowadays you can YouTube vegan recipe for brownies, vegan recipe for birthday cake, anything, right? Like Safari wants me to make her a birthday cake for her birthday, which is December 3rd, and I'm gonna look that up and I'm gonna make a vegan birthday cake, you know? So anything you can think of, you can make it vegan. People are making mozzarella cheese that's vegan and a bunch of crazy things. Okay, so now let's talk about how everybody in the family thinks about our vegan lifestyle. So Safari is completely down for it because she never was really much of a meat eater anyways. In America, maybe a little bit more, like chicken nuggets and bacon and things like that, but those things aren't prominent here. So she doesn't like, just like me, the natural process of eating meat, like watching the chicken get its head cut off and then frying the chicken. I don't know. I'm just from America. We just buy like chicken fillets and we cook them. So yeah, that was hard for both of us to process when we got here. And Georgina kind of just goes along with it because it's what the family has decided and because Shaha is on board. So a lot of things that are just like the opposite of what she's experienced in her life being in the village, she kind of just like looks at Shaha for guidance. So Shaha is on board and he like supports our family being vegan. We've looked at it in religious ways, we've looked at it in health ways, and it's supported in every way that we have looked at. So she is on board just because we are. But if we left her in the village and they were cooking chicken or they were eating fish, she would definitely eat chicken or fish or goat or whatever they had, you know? So I don't think she fully understands or is on board with like why we're doing it. She's just following suit because she's in the family. Shaha, he is older, of course, you know, so he's 32 now. And so he's lived his whole life with this mentality of meat means you have money. Meat means that you're well off and you're able to buy that meat, right? And so whenever he has meat, he really like cherishes it. When we were in the village and we would go to a hotel to eat every once in a while, like he would get meat maybe like once every 2 weeks, once every month, right? Just because he wanted to like treat himself because it was such a privilege to him to eat meat. So that is something that's a little bit hard for him, but because we have watched documentaries of how beneficial this is for our family, how beneficial it is for us religiously, that he is on board. It is just hard for him. So I quickly wanted to talk about why we are vegan, right? So that is a good question. I probably should have put at the beginning of the video, but we are vegan because I have had some serious health issues since coming to Kenya, and I will do a separate video on that so I can go into like a lot more detail and my experience with the medical system here, which hasn't been positive at all. But yeah, so I went to countless doctors on this medical issue, and they just are quick to be like, oh, here's the antibiotic, you'll feel better in 3 days or 5 days or whatever, right? And that's never the case. Since I got here, that's never the case, right? I never feel better after the medication that they give me. So I went to doctor after doctor, doctors in Mombasa, doctors in Kilifi, doctors in Nairobi, and they all just said the same thing. After I would tell them like the doctor before you said the same thing and that didn't help. Okay, well, we're gonna try this antibiotic then. And it was just kind of like ridiculous. And then I had a horrible experience with the last doctor, which was at the most expensive hospital in Nairobi. So that could tell you something. And he was horrible. I will do a video on it so you guys know who to be aware of. But yeah, and so after that, I was just like, wow, no one's gonna help me, you know? And so I started looking up what could possibly be wrong with me and how I could fix it holistically. And one of the main things was keep getting control of my diet. Granted, we didn't eat like a horrible diet before, and we didn't eat meat that often, but I wanted to take control of my diet, no alcohol, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but I wanted to eat very clean, very healthy, so that I could help my body heal itself, as opposed to going to doctor after doctor, spending money, and going to people that are not helping me. So that's kind of where we started with the whole vegan journey. So will we be vegan forever? I don't know. We're not vegan for the reason, I mean, it's a good byproduct, but we're not vegan for the reason of saving the animals, right? Like, I guess some people might say plant-based. We're vegan because we want to make sure our bodies are healthy. That is the most important thing that I focus on. And because of that, we do eat honey. So a lot of vegans don't eat honey because they think that that's coming from a bee, and that's like animal rights and all of that. I have not seen anything that is against eating honey, and I don't think that it's detrimental to my health. So that is the one thing that is not vegan that I do eat. However, I don't eat sugar at all. So if I am like sweetening something, I might use coconut sugar or agave syrup or maple syrup or date syrup or honey. So those are the 5 different sweeteners that I often use instead of raw sugar or any regular sugar. And here they actually have what we might call in America raw sugar, the one that comes in like the brown packages. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's the kind of sugar they have. They don't have like white, like table sugar or whatever like they have in America. It's like more of like a light brownish color, which is more natural, but I still don't eat it. So that, along with alcohol, no alcohol. And I'm trying to limit the amount of oil that I put into my body, but sometimes we do have fried potatoes, sometimes we do have French fries, which of course are deep fried, so that's not so healthy for us. But I'm trying to be the healthiest me that I can be, and it has helped so significantly with my health problems. So we watched the documentary What the Health on Netflix, and it was amazing. So I suggest watching that if you are going down this vegan path. I also suggest having certain questions answered ahead of time for dealing with this in public, right? So if you go to a hotel, or if you go to hang out with friends at a restaurant and your friends are like, oh, let me treat you to some meat or pilau with meat or whatever, then you have to say, oh no, I'm vegan, I don't eat meat, you know? And then they're gonna say, oh, what about chicken? Oh, what about this? You know, so you have to have those questions answered, or just give them a paragraph of like, oh, I don't eat meat, like no meat, so like no chicken, no fish, no milk, no eggs, we don't eat any of that, but like this dish would be fine, or you know, like make sure you're prepared for those questions. Why don't you eat meat, right? So like tell them for health reasons, for religious reasons, whatever the case is for you, as long as you have those questions answered and ready, because somebody is going to question you and continue questioning you. And if you don't stand up for what you believe in, then they're going to try to like push you down, you know, like, oh, like that's dumb, like you should eat meat, you should treat yourself, blah, 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 you know? So you have to just make sure that you are sturdy and stand strong in what you believe in. So that is what I have been trying to do, and I have seen how much it has helped my health and my family. So yeah, I don't think that we are going to stop being vegan anytime soon. I do think it might be much more difficult in America with all the fast foods and all the foods that I grew up loving that are not vegan. So that might be more difficult, but we don't plan on going to America anytime soon, and while we are here in Kenya, it is very easy for us to be vegan, besides the conversations with people. But food-wise, we are feeling so much healthier. So I just wanted to give you guys this update on being vegan in Kenya and what obstacles you might face when you are vegan in Kenya. So please let me know how you feel about that and what approaches you might take if you come to Kenya and you are vegan as well. And I would love to hear those down in the comments. So I will talk to you guys soon. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Bye!